So we are going to be talking about quartiles and box plots. And so if you don't have your calculator already, you're definitely going to need it because we are going to be extending on to some of those features that we talked about in the last video with making lists. All right, so for this, we are looking at the 5-number summary in particular. That's the big thing. That's what it's going to be called. And whenever we talk about the 5-number summary, we're talking about obviously 5 numbers, but the numbers are the minimum, which is the smallest, the maximum, which is the biggest, and then we have 3 quartiles. The first, second, and third quartile. Let me just kind of draw a picture of what I'm talking about. If I take something, here's a line. This is supposed to be a number line, but it really doesn't matter. It could be a piece of string for all it matters. I want to cut it into 4 pieces. And when I cut it into 4 pieces, I have a total of 5 marks on this. And so that's why this is the 5-number summary, but we are going to be cutting things into fourths. So we have the smallest on the left and the biggest on the right. And then each time we go for a chunk of this, we have 1/4. So that's going to result in Q1, or the first quartile. So quar is that prefix meaning 1/4. And then we're going to have our second chunk right there. That's the second quartile. So that will end right here at Q2. But in the middle, we already have a name for that, and that is the median. So the median or Q2, they're the same thing. Rarely is it referred to as Q2, but it does represent the second quartile. And then from the median on up, we have the third quartile. I'm only doing these in different colors because it's pretty. There's not really a reason for it. And it's easy to see the different chunks when you look at them in different colors. And then starting at Q3 going up, that would be the fourth quartile, but it ends at the same spot as the maximum. So we just call it the max. So the 5 numbers we're using are the minimum, Q1, the median, Q3, and the maximum. Okay, so quartiles are very specific percentiles. We're going to talk about percentiles in a little bit towards the end, but it's divided up into quarters. So this paragraph right here, this is just saying what I just drew in the picture. So you could read through that later and it'll re-explain the picture. And then the median is a certain center of data that we talked about in the last, but it's the middle value. And it does say the median does not actually have to be one of the observed values. We're going to see that in a minute of how that would happen. Okay, but these are the steps to finding the 5-number summary. This is the most important one. It's the most time consuming, it's the most boring, but if you don't do it, everything else will be wrong. So you put your numbers from smallest to the largest. After you do that, it'll be really easy to say what's the smallest and what's the largest. It'll be relatively easy to find the middle, the median, and then finally, we're going to find the median of each half the quarters. Okay, so what does that look like? Here we have a list of numbers, and I can just tell pretty quickly that it's not quite in number order. It looks like it starts off in number order, but seeing as that 30 is at the end after the 35, I'm going to need to rewrite this. So I'm arranging it from smallest to largest. So I have my 2 10s, and then 22 and 24, and then 26 and 30, the weirdos over here at the end. So now that there's 1, 2, 3, 4 32s, oops, I need to write all 4 of them. And then 34, 35. And so counting all this up, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. This is an example of an even number of numbers, or of data values. That's better than saying number of numbers. So in this example, n equals 12. N is the number of numbers in this list, the number of data values. There's 12 numbers in this list, 12 data values in this list. Therefore, there's an even number. I'm not so worried about n. We'll get to it later, but right now, just notice that this is an even number. We're going to do number 2 is going to have an odd number. So I'm going to show you what happens in each of those scenarios. Okay, so first, next step, identify the maximum and minimum, and then find the median. Okay, so the maximum and minimum are going to be really easy to find once they're in number order. Oops, max. And I should probably keep a tally of this. So I'm going to have over here my answer: minimum, Q1, median, Q2, and then maximum. Those are supposed to be colons. Some of them didn't show the second dot. Okay, anyways, the minimum is 10, the maximum is 35. This is going to be my final answer once I get all the numbers filled in. Okay, median is the next step. So that's right in the middle. There's 12 numbers all together. So the middle is going to have 6 on one side and 6 on the other. So if I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, this right here is the middle because there's 6 numbers to the left of the line and 6 numbers to the right of the line. Now, we don't have an actual number there, and this is what I said we're going to talk about this in a minute. The underlined part does not actually have to be one of the data values or one of the observed values. So you'll notice that the number in between 30 and 32 is not in the data set. So you could think about this. It doesn't, usually people are what number's in between 30 and 32, and they get 31. For this, it was pretty easy to just think about because 30 and 32 are so close, but other times it's a little harder. So the mathematical way of finding that number is just to add up the two numbers and divide by 2, or finding the average of the two numbers. So if I say what number is right in between 30 and 31, what number is right in the middle of 30 and 32, then you just say 31. But if I said what number is right in the middle of 101 and 177, that's a little harder to just know off the top of your head. So you would just add the two numbers and divide by 2. Okay. Last but not least, because we did these first. We did it. Locate the median of each half. So now I have all the numbers from 10 to 30. There's 6 numbers. So the median here is going to be the middle of the 6 numbers. So that would be 3 and 3. 1, 2, 3. There's the middle. 32, 32, 32. So splitting it. So you can see on each side of the red line, there's 6 numbers. On each side of the blue line, if you look from the beginning to the red line, there's 3 numbers, 3 numbers. If you look at, and same thing on the other side, the red line till the end, there's 3 numbers and 3 numbers. So what number is in between 22 and 24? That's 23. So Q1 is 23. What number is in between 32 and 32? Well, it's 32. And if you're like, that kind of seems like so easy that it almost doesn't make sense. Well, just do the formula. 32 on the left of the blue line, 32 on the right of the blue line, add them up, divide by 2, and it equals 32. So you'll notice that the data values here, or not the data values, the 5-number summary, they're not all data values. So 23 and 31 are not on the list. That's okay. Nobody said they had to be on the list. In fact, it specifically is underlined above that they don't have to be on the list. Also, there's not a pattern that you could just follow. You can't just find the first number and then add, because if I did 10 to 23, that's 13. 23 to 31 is 8. 31 to 32 is 1. 32 to 35 is 3. So there's not a pattern there. So you just have to count the numbers in. Okay. We're going to do it one more time, and then after this, we'll do it with a calculator, but it's always good to have the non-calculator way to know how to do it. We're going to do this next one, and this one, you can count already without even doing the problem. We don't need to know what the number order is. We can see that there's 11 numbers in here. So this example is going to be for an odd number of data values. It's going to be the same process, but you're not going to have that weird middle average thing on this one. Okay, so I'm going to put them in number order. So I put 6, 9, looks like 11, 16, 18, 20, 21, 25, 26, 31, 33, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, I have all the numbers here. Okay, so now I'll write my 5-number summary. Let's just write it on the left here. The minimum, Q1, the median, Q3, and the max. And you're going to see on the homework that it's always like written down, like almost always it's written down like this. On the calculator, it's going to be written down like this. By written down, I mean literally top to bottom down. So that's why I write it like this. But this is going to be where my answer is. So the minimum and the maximum, we just get right away. Now, when I'm going to go in the middle of 11 numbers, it's going to have 5 numbers on this side, 5 numbers on this side, and it's going to be that middle number, that number in the middle that's going to get me there. If you aren't sure, like, okay, yeah, I said 11 numbers and I just told you about the 5 and the 5 split, but if you do an example and you're like, I don't know where that actually came from, we can just count. So we say, take 1 off each end, take 2 off each end, take 3 off each end, take 4 off each end, take 5 off each end, and here's the middle right here. This is the median. Okay, so this is where we would draw that line, like I did above, the red line above that indicate the middle. This time, the red line was the number. It was the number 20. I didn't need to find the middle of it. I didn't need to find the average. It's just 20. Now, up above, when I drew that red line, it was in between 30 and 32, so it didn't include a data value. We've already talked about that a few times. So I didn't really regard it as I continued on the problem. I just used that as like the wall, and I split the data values after that. Here, the red line goes right through the number 20. So that number's done. That's why I put the line right through it. Like I've crossed it off, I'm not going to consider it. Now I have these 5 numbers and these 5 numbers, and I want to find the median of those. So again, I say cross off the first number, cross off the second number. Okay, here we are in the middle. 11 is Q1. Let's try that again. We're going from 21 to 33. 20 is no longer considered because I use 20 as the median. If it's a number that's not in the data value, like up here on 31, then it goes away, or then it's not considered when I'm doing the next round. But since 20 was used up, I need to specifically consider that I'm throwing it away and I'm just looking from 21 to 33. So again, cross off the first number on each side, cross off the second number on each side, and I'm left with 26. Okay, not terribly difficult because it's a lot of counting, but there are a bunch of like little rules, like this time I take the average, this time I include the number, this time I don't. So it can get confusing. And so what we're going to do is we're going to do number 1 over again, except I'm going to do it all on my calculator. So I'm going to switch over to my calculator real quick. Oops, can't use my mouse. And for this video, I'm just going to use my graphing calculator. And the main reason is because it was sitting here already and it lights up very easily and I didn't need to go find my other one. But all the steps are going to be exactly the same as the last video because it's just the same as finding a list. So if you have the other calculator, you're just going to type in a list like last time and all the steps will be there. So we're going to go to our list. And here I filled up my list already. So just as a reminder, let me get out of here. You can clear that list. So I'm going to go down to clear list. If you are on the other calculator, just hit data one more time and it'll clear the list for you. I'm going to clear list 1. Now, this is something I haven't talked about on this calculator, I don't think. If I want to say specifically that I want to clear list 1, it says clear list right here, but I have to say which one. So if you look down here, it's in blue. It says L1, L2, L3, L4. So I'm going to hit the blue button and I'm going to hit the 1 button because that's where L1 is located. And now it says clear list 1. Done. Okay. Go back to the beginning. I'm going to type in problem 1 into my calculator. So I have, and it doesn't, I'm just going to type in the numbers that are printed on problem 1 in that order. I'm not putting them in number order because the whole idea is to do a problem that we haven't done before. See, there's 332s, and it's 26. Sorry, I can't type and talk. In the future, you're going to just do this for all problems if you like it. So there's no sense in sitting here typing them in number order and then having to, if you're going to write it out in number order, you might as well just do the whole problem by hand. Okay, so I have these numbers listed, and I'm going to go to back to stat, or let's clear, we always go back to the main menu, go back to stat, and I'm going to calculate. So everybody, no matter what calculator, you're going to calculate one variable stats. I have all my data in list 1. I have none as the frequency or the word 1 if you have the other calculator. And we're going to calculate. So this is exactly the same that we did the other day. And we're going to get this same list right here that we got the other day. We're just going to use a different part of it. So no matter which calculator you have, once you get this list popped up, scroll down to the bottom, and the very last 5 numbers are the 5-number summary. So here we have the minimum is 10, Q1 is 23, the median is 31, Q3 is 32, and the maximum is 35. Again, it doesn't matter what calculator you have, we're going to follow the exact same steps as the last video, and then just scroll down to the very bottom. If you have any questions, if you're like, I'm not familiar enough with the other calculator, I need you to do it like that, just email me and I can just make a little video. I do have another video on posting lists in the other calculator that I might throw up. If people are asking a lot of questions, you can't remember how to do lists, I might throw that in there. But once you get the list down, the 5-number summary is right there at the very bottom. Okay, so now that we know how to do it on the calculator, you can see we got all those same answers a lot faster. Now we're going to do this example only on the calculator. Now this is a frequency table. We've talked about this in the last video about frequency tables and what they are, or I think we just did the mean of them in the last video. But what we're going to do is find the 5-number summary for this. So I'm going to pause it and type all of these values in. Just like we did last time, we have list 1 for the value and list 2 for the frequency. So pause the video, clear your lists, type in everything in L1 in the value, everything in L2 in the frequency, and then as soon as I come back, then we're going to have, I'm just going to be jumping right into it with both calculators. That's why I'm encouraging you to pause the video right now. All right, I am back. I have everything typed in to the calculator. Hopefully you have both of those typed in as well. Again, it's not going to help you to watch me do it. It will help you to watch me do it while you're doing it along with me. So here we have the graphing calculator. And since I was on pause, I did go get my other calculator, so I'll show you for both of these. But here we have a frequency table. And just as a reminder, everything has to be exactly in the right pairing as before, as it was on the table on the worksheet. So 1 has to go with 3, 3 has to go with 3, 4 has to go with 1, and so forth. And now I'm going to do everything exactly the same. The only extra step is the frequency. So on this calculator, I'm going to hit stat. And I'm going to go over to calculate one variable stats, because that's what we're doing for the very next long time. We will be doing one variable stats. And so here I have the list in L1, and then the frequency list, I need it to say L2. So I'm going to go down. L2 is located right by the 2 button, and it's blue. So I'm going to hit second 2, and L2 pops up. Go down to calculate, and I will have my 5-number summary down here at the bottom, 1, 3, 8, oops, I hit my camera, 1, 3, 8, 9, 12. Okay, so let's try that again with the other calculator here. We have all the values in there. We have them paired up next to the ones they're supposed to be next to. And now I'm going to go back to my blank screen. I'm going to hit data. No, I'm not. That's how I got here to begin with. I'm going to hit stat. One variable stats. I have the data in L1 and the frequency. I'm going to use this toggle button. I'm going to go down to L2 and hit enter because my data is in L1, my frequency is in L2. Once I hit enter, it brings me down to calculate. And now I'm going to scroll down. And on this calculator, the screen is much smaller, so I can't see as much at the same time. So scrolling down takes a lot longer. So I'm going to scroll up instead, and that'll just jump me straight to the bottom. And I can see the minimum is 1, Q1 is 3, the median is 8, Q3 is 9, and the maximum is 12. So that is the 5-number summary on both calculators. Hopefully it's making sense to you because we use these calculators a lot in this class. Okay, so going back to the notes, we are now moving on to finding the kth percentile in a data set. So what we just did, let me scroll back for a second. We were finding quartiles, which is 1/4 quarter. Another way to think about a quartile is a very specific percentile. So Q1 is the same as 25%. Q3 is the same as 75%. 3/4, 75. See where this is headed? And then the median is halfway, so it's the 50th percentile. Those are very specific. Q1 is only 1/4. It's only 25%. That's all it can ever be. They have very special names. Now we're going to get to some problems where there's other percentiles involved besides just those very specific ones, because we can go anywhere from 1 to 99. This is called the kth percentile because we don't know what the percent is and we're just calling it K. So in order to do this, we're going to order our numbers from least to greatest. Any percentile quartile problem starts off the same. Then we're going to figure out what percentile they're looking for. That's K. And then N is the total number of data values. N back here, I called it N. It was the total number of data values over here on the left. That will be what N is forever and ever. In fact, if you look in your calculator, when we're scrolling through, I'll show you next time we use it. It says N in there as well. And it just means how many values are in this data set. So K is the percentile that's new, that's unique to this section, but N is going to be the total number of data values for every problem in this entire class. And then last but not least, I is the index or position. And so this is the formula right here that we're going to use, and we're going to plug in K and plug in N and solve for I. And so we have here a list of ages. There's 29. So I know that N is 29 because there's 29 ages. I don't even have to count them. And it says, what's the 70th percentile? So the first example, K is 70. And I'll do that in a second. Part B, what's the 83rd percentile? So the percent is 83, so K is 83. We don't need to do any fancy like changing them into decimals or anything like that. You just write that number as K. All right, so I'm going to come down here because there's a little more space. But I'm using this formula. So here, I'll do part A over here. And for part A, I equals K is 70, N is 29, and we're dividing it by 100. That's why we don't have to worry about the decimal because 100 is already in the problem. So what we're doing is we're trying to find out what 70% of 30 is. 29 plus 1 is 30. Because then that'll give us the nice spot on this list. So I'm going to plug it into my calculator. And however you do things on your calculator is fine. This isn't very fancy. It's just some multiplication and division. So however you type that into your calculator. And I'm getting that I equals 21. So what this is saying is what number, and you don't need to write this down every time. I'm just writing it down the first time so that when you go back later, it hopefully makes a little more sense. What number on the list is in the 21st spot. So we just count to 21. And I'm just going to cross them off so I know that I got them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Ooh, that shouldn't be 300. If we're talking about ages, that's clearly a typo. That's a 30. But it didn't affect our answer because we're just counting. All right, now I lost count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. So this is the 21st spot on the list. So the answer is 64. And that's it. So the 21 is not referring to a 21-year-old. We don't go pick the 21-year-old and select them from our list or say, oh, they're in the second spot. I don't care. The 21-year-old, good for them. That's not who I'm talking about. I'm talking about if I line everyone up from youngest to oldest, who's the 21st person on the list. All right, let's try that again. Same problem, but this time we're going to use 83. So I is 83 times 29 plus 1 over 100. Now, one thing, I will switch over my screen for a second because I think this, I like to just use little shortcuts on my calculator. So here we have this last problem that I just did. If I want to do the same problem, but now I'm doing it with 83, I scroll up until I highlight my question and I hit enter, and that's copy and paste on this calculator. So I just have to go back up and use the arrows and say, okay, instead of 70, I'm going to use 83. Now it gave me a weird number. It gave me a decimal. Why did it give me a decimal? Okay, whatever. It gave me a decimal. Or it gave me a fraction. So I need to come down here and hit, oops, where's this little button right here? It converts from fractions to decimals and wiggle my way into 24.9. Okay, so 24.9 is the answer. And you're thinking to yourself, how do you count to 24.9? Well, what we're going to do is what this question is asking is what number or what age, oops, or what word can I not spell? What number is, or on the list between the 24th and 25th spot? So what we do is we round up and down. We don't follow, wait, where did I even go? I don't even know what I'm sharing at this point. Okay, let me go back. Share my screen. I think I was just writing to myself. Share my screen, share my face, all that fun stuff, back to basics. Okay, so I did write a little bit in blue without the screen showing, but it was saying, I said, what number is between the 24th and 25th spot? So what we do is we take that 24.9 because it's kind of in, not kind of, it's in the middle between two numbers. And rather than just guess which one they're talking about, we figure out what's in between. And so I'm just going to start where I already got left off. Here's the 21st spot, 22nd, 23rd. Here's the 24th and 25th spots on the list. So we want to know what number is in between 71 and 72. And so we put them together and the final answer is 71.5 because that's what's halfway between. So when you get to a number that's not a whole number answer, like here we had 24.9 instead of 25, then we just go in between the two. I don't want to be so specific as to like, well, technically that's halfway between 24 and 25. It's not, and you're supposed to do 9/10 of the way between. We're not that specific. We're just saying this number right here, this 24.9 is not a whole number. So we're just going between the two whole numbers that are on either side of it, just as a rule, round down and round up, and then that's where we end up. Okay. Last but not least, we're going to talk about outliers. So outliers, well, before we get to outliers, we need to talk about the IQR, the interquartile range. So let me go back to my picture. I'm not literally going back, I'm just going to redraw it. But I had my string that I cut into 4 pieces, and it took 5 cuts to make 4 pieces. And we said this was Q1 and this is Q3. And so the IQR is all the space between those two. That represents the middle half. The middle 50% is the IQR. And so the way we calculate that is Q3 minus Q1. Oops, that didn't need to be an arrow, but that's the IQR, is all that space right here, and it is Q3 minus Q1. The reason we would use the IQR is to calculate an outlier. So from now on, if anything says, is this an outlier? You want to use this outlier formula for your yes or no answer. That would be the work that you show, as opposed to in previous sections, we would just think about if something was an outlier and did it feel like an outlier. That's not really mathy, but it just kind of got us there for the beginning. But now we have an official formula. So the IQR, or the outlier, the lower outlier is anything that falls below Q1 minus 1.5 times the IQR. And the upper outlier would be Q3 plus 1.5 times the IQR. Okay, so to do that, I'm going to take this list right here. I want to find the IQR and any outliers. All of these need, it doesn't say it explicitly, but the formulas need Q1 and Q3. If you look at all the formulas that we're using right here for the IQR and then the outliers, then we need Q1 and Q3. So I'm just going to get the whole 5-number summary. And this one's kind of short. Maybe you want to do it by hand, but I like my calculator. So I'm going to do it on my calculator. And here we have a calculator that has values already. So as I said before, you could just clear the list all at once instead of deleting everything. So I'm going to hit data, and now I can clear list 1 and list 2 separately. Or if I go down to the bottom, I can clear all and then just restart. So, I mean, I didn't really need to, I just needed 1 list, but I just cleared everything. I just went nuclear. Okay, so we have 5, 14, oops. Okay, so I forgot 12. That's okay, because this is the calculator, doesn't have to be in number order, so I can type in 12 after the 14. I just have to remember that I did that. So I did the first 3, so now I'm going to 19, 19, 21, 25, 29, and 33. And one thing I didn't talk about before, if you go up, or maybe I did in another video, but that was a different day, so I forgot. Right here, that 9 right there is telling us how many lists are in this data value, or this data set. That's our N. So anyways, I can just get out of here, go to stat, 1 variable stats. No matter which calculator you're using, go down, change the frequency back to 1, or delete it off your graphing calculator, because this problem doesn't have any frequency. And then I'm going to go down, and I need that Q1 is 13 and Q3 is 27. I don't need the whole 5-number summary. I just need Q1 is 13 and Q3 is 27. So I'm going to type those, or not type them, but I'm going to write those values onto this problem. So I said oops, I'm on my highlighter still. Q1 is 13, Q3 is 27. Okay, so I'm going to use those 2 numbers. I'm going to find the IQR, and then I'm going to find any outliers. So the IQR is Q3 minus Q1. So it's 27 minus 13. So the IQR is 14. The interquartile range. Now, for the outliers, for the lower outlier, I'm going to do this formula for the smaller one, Q1 minus 1.5 times 14. So I just typed that in my calculator. Q1 minus 1.5 times 14, and I get -8. And there is no negative on here. That's okay. The lower range is -8. It's saying anything below -8 is an outlier. Well, there's nothing below -8. Cool. So I don't have any lower outliers. Okay, I'm going to do that again, but now I'm going to use Q3, which is 27, and I'm going to add 1.5 times the IQR. So I'm using the upper range here, and I get 48. So the upper is 27 plus 1.5 times 14, and that equals 48. So the outliers would be anything smaller than -8, there's nothing. Anything larger than 48, there's nothing. So I can conclude that for this problem, there's no outliers. And you might have guessed that. And you might have just looked at it and said, hey, I don't feel like anything's an outlier. Or you might have looked at it, you might have thought 5 was an outlier because it's kind of lower than 12. It's only one digit number. But now we don't have to guess. We can say for certain that there's no outliers. Okay, so now we're going to put everything together. We're going to do a box plot. And a box plot is just a picture of a 5-number summary. So starting at the beginning, I'm going to put all of these numbers in. And so I'm going to use the calculator to find the 5-number summary. Okay. I really wish I could switch back and forth more easily, but I have to unplug my mouse to switch back and forth. So, oh well, it is what it is. But I'm switching back and forth on calculators, so there's that. Okay, so I'm going to quit out of here. I'm going to go to stat. I'm going to clear anything that I've already done. I can't remember what I've done here, so I think I have stuff for L1 and L2. I could just do all those lists at once by separating them with the comma right below the sign button. Okay, everything should be cleared. I'm going to go back and enter in list 1. This does not, oopsies, I have it in the wrong list. Okay, get out of here. Go to list 1. I don't have to have it in any sort of order, so I'm just going to type these numbers after I see them. That 93 is feeling really big, but who knows? Because then I have an 88, so maybe the 30 is small. I'm not sure what's going on. I'm just going to type all the numbers and see what's going on. 38, 71, 50, 57. This way we don't have to guess if something is an outlier or not. Then we just can tell but once we get the answer. And so this said it was an 11-day period. So I noticed that I'm on the 11th number right here. That's perfect. So I'm going to go to my stat. So I'm going to calculate one variable stats. Because I didn't use this on the last problem, I do need to delete the frequency, but hopefully you did that earlier. And here we go. Now you'll notice on this calculator, it does tell us that n equals 11. I mentioned that we would look at that later. It's the very first thing on the other kind of calculator, n equals 11. So it's good to see that n equals 11 because that means that I entered all the numbers and I didn't do too many or too little. Okay, but here we have our 5-number summary. I got 21, 30, 57, 71, 93. And so now I am going to type all of that in, not type it, I'm going to write all of that right here on my paper. So we have the minimum is 21. The Q1 is 30. You can use equal sign or colon, it doesn't matter. We're just saying what the values are. 57, this is not the answer. This is just going to help me draw the answer. 71, I wrote too big at the top. Max is 93. Okay, so what we're going to do, remember I've done this a few times. We drew a number line. We cut it into 4 pieces. That's not cutting it into 4 pieces. Let me try that again. We're going to cut it into 4 pieces by using 5 marks. Well, now we have names for these marks, medium, Q1, and so forth. And this is called a box plot. And so what we're going to do is we're going to identify the IQR in this problem with a box. So we're going to connect Q1 to Q3. And so I have my minimum, which is 21. I have the beginning of my IQR, which is 30. I have the middle, which is 57. I have the end of my IQR, which is 71. And then I have my maximum, which is 93. So for a regular box plot, we have the minimum, we have Q1, the median, Q3, and we have the maximum. It's the same picture I've been drawing over and over again, but now I put a box around the IQR, and it just really makes that box pop out. I mean, the IQR pop out because it's that middle part, that middle 50%. Okay, so here it says create a box plot. We did that. Now identify any outliers. So for the outliers, as a reminder, we need the IQR, which is going to be Q3 minus Q1. So it's going to be 71 minus 30, or 41 for this problem. And then we're going to need to calculate any outliers. And I'm still quickly regretting the amount of space I left for this problem. Okay, at least the next one has a little more space. This is going to be kind of cramped in here. Okay, so I have Q3. This is for the lower. I said the wrong one. I have Q1. Q1 minus 1.5 times the IQR. So I have 30 minus 1.5 times 41. Plug that into my calculator. And I get negative 31.5. So if I was on this number line, if I was to draw where the outliers would be, they'd be like way over here. Anything smaller than this line. But there's nothing in this space. All that space is not really on my number line. So there's no lower outliers. The upper fence, so that 21 is not an outlier, even though it seemed kind of low compared to some of the other numbers. Nope. The upper fence is going to be Q3 plus 1.5 times the IQR. So we have 71 plus 1.5 times 41. That sounds like it's going to be a big number. So I go back to my calculator, type in 75 plus 1.5 times 41 at 132.5. Thanks. So that means in order to be an upper outlier, it would need to be somewhere way over here, somewhere way bigger than 93, way over there, 132. So there's none. There are no outliers. But you can't just say none. You want to show your work to show why there's none, and then get the gold star. Okay, last example. I am getting kind of tired of my own voice, so I imagine you are too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause it, and I want you to pause it and do this problem. And when I come back, I'm going to have everything worked out, and I'm going to walk you through it. So if you don't want to be bombarded by information, I highly suggest you pause the video, you take a second, you practice it yourself, you put it in your own calculator, and then you come back and you check your answers. Okay, I don't know what just happened. I feel like I just paused myself in the middle of talking. So what I meant to do was turn off the video and say that I highly encourage you to try this problem, and I will be right back with the answer. All right, I am back, and I have these problems or these numbers written out. And so we have the 5-number summary, and you might have noticed as you were typing these in, like 12 is really low. I really feel like 12 is an outlier, and we're going to see why that feeling was right, and we'll see if there's any other outliers in this problem. And so I got my 5-number summary from the calculator, so double check your answers there. I use my 5-number summary to fill in the box plot. So I have the minimum Q1, the median Q3, and the maximum on the box plot. And then I calculated the IQR by doing Q3 minus Q1, and I got 18. And I used the 18 in the problem for the upper and lower, along with Q1 or Q3, depending on the formula. And so I found out that the lowest, or any lower outliers are going to be below 35. So any number on this list below 35 is an outlier. So it looks like only 12, it follows that rule. Everything else is greater than 35. And then any numbers bigger than 107 is also an outlier. So you can have outliers on both ends of your number line. And in this case, I don't have any numbers bigger than 107 because the max is 85. So for any outliers, we only have 12. You don't need to write only. I don't know why I did that. I meant to just say it. So we drew a box plot and then we calculated the outliers and we found out that 12 is an outlier. Make sure you have your reasoning. Make sure you have your work shown, as opposed to just saying, I feel like 85 is an out, or I feel like 12 is an outlier, because there could have been a number on this list. There could have been a 34 on this list. That was also an outlier, and you would have missed that if you're just going off of feeling. So we want to have the formulas calculated out. All right, this feels like it was kind of longer than I meant it to be, but here we are. So again, use your calculator. Email me if you have any calculator questions, or just life questions, whatever. I'll be here. All right, see you in the next video. Bye.